for the troubling and toxic brew of media reporting, political pontifications, military harassment is the Torah, Yahowah's teaching, his guidance. And that is why in our second hour we turn to Yahowah, that's God's one and only name, to consider what he has to say. Because he has warned us about human institutions. Through his prophets, he's told us how horrible they are and what the consequences of aligning ourselves with them. And while I could have taken you directly to the formation of the covenant, since it is the only means of escape, the only reliable answer, and I could have simply reported to you the 5 things that Yahowah asks of us in advance of adopting us to his family. If I had done so, I would have failed as a guide, because you would have missed the foundation upon which this relationship was formed. And that's why we have been methodical. After it all, it's God's story. It's God's covenant. He's offering it to us. The least we ought to do is consider what he has to say. So let's stay the course en route to Yah's succinct listing of covenant codicils. And that keeps our attention focused upon the third meeting between Yahowah and Abram. Yesterday's program, we came to the conclusion of the second of these meetings. Not surprisingly, it all also began, as did the previous ones, with a conversation. The man who had shared words with God, who had walked with God, had proven himself worthy of continuing to be God's friend and companion. Now, he didn't prove himself to be worthy because he was perfect, because he was religious, because he was devout, because he was some other thing, including particularly smart. He proved himself worthy because he listened and he acted upon what God had said. If God said, I want you to walk away from Babylon, he walked away from Babylon. If God said, I want you to rely on what I'm offering and meet me in the land that I'm offering to you, he did. It's just as simple as that. If you want to be worthy of being adopted into God's family, listen to what he has to say and respond to it. You don't have to be brilliant. You certainly don't have to be perfect. Just simply have to be willing to invest the time to come to know who he is as he has described himself in his Torah. Not based upon what men have had to say about him and religious institutions, because that's a false God. And then come to understand what he's offering and respond appropriately. That's it. Not any more complicated than that. So this man who had this ongoing conversation with God says after his successful journey from to Haran and then to the Promised Land, after his visit with the Pharaoh in Egypt, which was a harbinger of things to come, and after his return to the land that was at that time called Canaan, after his separation from his nephew Lot, after his rescue then subsequently of Lot from a local warlord, and after what is called the Shechadek's blessing, which Melech in Hebrew speaks of messenger, and Sadek in Hebrew speaks of being upright and vindicated. So this is really not an individual. There's no priestly establishment like this. It's just strictly this blessing was Yah's blessing. He is the messenger who brings righteousness, who makes us upright in his presence, who vindicates us. After all of that, we hear. After these conversations, the word of Yahowah came to exist as God unto Abram in the form of a personal, visual, and illuminating manifestation which could be seen and experienced, to say, do not be awed, Abraham, or Abram in this case still. I am a defender and shield, a protective covering for you. Your exceedingly great reward. This is Bereshith in the beginning, Genesis, for those who prefer the Greek title of a Hebrew text, from the 15th chapter, first statement. Lots of insights here worth our consideration. What you begin with is having Devarim followed by Debar. So after, which is Akar, following and pertaining to these, Elah, and this is Elah, would be these things which would be godly conversations, Devarim, communications. The word Debar of Yahowah. The word of Yahowah that can be seen is Yahusha. Yahusha is not a separate individual. It's not the third person of the Trinity, or the second person of the Trinity, or even a person of the Trinity. All Yahusha is Yahowah in corporeal form, saving us. Not the entirety of Yahowah, as Paul would write, as that is irrational. It's impossible. The totality of God is not so small that it can fit into a man. It is instead Yahowah, who is light energy, setting apart a portion of his light energy from himself, and then diminishing that light energy at the rate of the square of the speed of light times, well, the square of the speed of light times itself. That's the amount that then the light energy that has been set apart must be diminished to become corporeal, to take on human form. And so the word of Yahowah is found in his Torah, and it is found when it is visible and tangible before us, when it is manifest before us. When the word of Yahowah is manifest before us, it is Yahusha, who's simply Yahowah. Set apart, diminished in human form. The living Torah. So after these conversations, these communications, and that's how God now is summarizing what has taken place thus far. It's a communication. If you would like to participate in a similar communication, all you need to do is listen to what God has to say in his Torah. If you listen to him and respond to him, then your conversation with him will be very much like the conversation he had with Abram. God will talk to you. You can listen to him. You can respond to what he has to say. So after these conversations, the word of Yahowah, this would be Yahowah manifest as Yahusha, came to exist as. This is the word that literally defines the basis of Yahowah's name. This is Yahowah Haya. Haya is the Hebrew word meaning be. The past tense, it would be in the first person, it would be I am. In the first person, in the present tense, or past tense, I was. In the present tense, I am. And in the future tense, I will be. Of course, in Hebrew, there are no tenses, not in the sense of being stuck in time. So, Haya simply means I exist. And collectively, I was, I am, I will be, when rendered in the first person. But Haya, according to Yahowah himself, and he ought to know it's his name, it's his language, says that his name is based upon this verb, Haya. It means that, by the way, that pronouncing Yahweh as in the H as an sound as opposed to an ah sound is torn asunder by this verb. God himself says that Haya, Hey, Yod, Hey, is the basis of his name. We know how to pronounce Haya. It's one of the most common verbs throughout the Torah. It is the basis of Yahweh's name. So Yahweh in his name is saying, exist. And what's interesting here, it's not just that Yahweh exists, which means, by the way, he could not be born, which means he could not die. With the verb therefore completely destroying two of the edicts of Christianity. It also tells us that if we wish to exist, past, present, and future, that we ought to look to the name based upon this verb, Yahweh. And when we look to the name based upon this verb, and we realize that the name is based on the verb which means to exist, and we see the Yod is God's hand reaching down and out to us, and two people standing upright, reaching up, looking up to God, with the haze meaning behold, pay attention. If we reach up, look up, and pay attention to what God is saying, and grasp hold of his hand as he lifts us up and holds us securely, leading us to his promised land, that we will exist. And while that defines the Yod and the Hez and Yahweh, as they come from Haya, to exist, to be, there is one letter in Yahweh's name that is not found in the verb. It is the Hebrew Wah. In Hebrew, the Wah is used to convey, to add to increase, to join things together. In this case, men and women are being joined unto God. They're being increased with God's enrichment and his power. They're being increased by becoming heirs to all that is his to give. The Wah was drawn in the original language of the alphabet, I should say, of the Torah, as a tent peg, because it speaks specifically of what is being offered in this text. Yahweh said, I am your protective. I'm going to shield you from harm. It is the tent peg that secured the tent covering, that protected it against the elements, that protected the family that was inside. It's the basis of Yahweh's name. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. We're considering one of the more profound statements regarding the covenant. This begins by saying, after these conversations, Debarim, this is Akar, Ele, Debarim, the word Debar of Yahweh, came to exist as Haya, was, is, and will be. This was scribed, by the way, in the third person masculine singular. It's speaking of he, being the word of God, referencing Yahusha as the word. It was written in the call stem, which tells us that this is something that we ought to view as having literally and actually occurred. And it was written in the perfect, which says that the word was completely, the word of Yahweh was completely manifest. And not partially so, but the word of Yahweh was completely manifest by this tangible form. And the reason that this is important, this preamble to this statement, is that Christians do a travesty to the Word of God. They take their Jesus Christ, they change his name so that he is no longer associated with Yahweh. Then they disassociate him from the Torah, from which he is the living embodiment. And they do so that they can start their own new religion and have no affiliation with the God who authored the Torah and prophets. And So there has to be a total separation of the Jesus from the Word of Yahowah. But yet, all Yahushua is the total, literal, complete manifestation of the Word. And the Word of Yahowah is in the Torah and prophets, full stop. That's it. And so it is the Word of Yahowah that you need to know if you want to know Yahushua. And there's only one reason to know Yahushua, and that is because he is the living embodiment of the Torah. And the Torah is the book that introduces us to Yahowah, tells us how we can engage in a relationship with Yahowah, tells us how Yahowah saves those who act upon the terms and conditions of his covenant. And the moment you sever the human manifestation of Yahowah from his word, you've lost everything. You no longer have anything that has any merit. You don't understand why he ate Passover dinner with his disciples. You don't understand why he served as the Passover lamb. You don't know what happened on matzah on the Shabbat and its influence on your salvation. You have no clue as to what happened on Bikurim and why the three eyewitness accounts on that day have only one thing in common, that no one recognized him. You don't understand why there was no bodily resurrection, why God could not be killed, why Yahushua said, my God, why have you forsaken me? You have no connection to the Word of God, and therefore it's just all this fog of confusion that as a result the only option is to believe, because evidence and reason leads you to conclude that these Christian edicts are false. So this is extraordinarily important. If you want to participate in the covenant, then you need to listen to the conversations of God that come from his word, and that it's Yahowah's word, not Paul's, not Jesus's, it's Yahowah's word. If you want to come to exist and be forever with Yahowah, you have to focus on his word. And there you will engage in a conversation with God. And it says, so after these conversations, the word of Yahowah came to exist as God unto Abram, the father who uplifts, in the form of a personal, visual, and illuminating manifestation which could be seen and experienced. This is as a personal revelation of enlightening communication which can be beheld and visualized as a window or aperture constructed for the purpose of flooding an area with light, is what this mak'ezeh conveys. This is a depiction of how light is transformed into that which can be seen and manifest, experienced. It's a depiction of the very nature of Yahushua as a set-apart and diminished corporeal manifestation of the Word of God, of Yahowah himself, personal, visual, and illuminating, a manifestation which can be experienced. To Shattering Myths. We have a Glenn who's called in from Pennsylvania, frequent listener to the program and someone who has added richly to the program through his comments and questions over the past time. Oh, just as I'm complimenting Glenn, he was disconnected. I'm sorry about that. Glenn wanted to make a comment about the Christian perspective on the Torah, and would have been a perfect time to discuss that. Hope he calls back. next time I'll just go directly to Glenn as opposed to compliment him on his contribution to the program. This first statement, then, that is being shared by the visual and illuminating manifestation of Yahowah says something that is also extraordinarily important. When you understand the Torah and Yahweh's role in the Torah, the first thing you recognize is that Yahowah wants to be loved as a father. He wants us to approach him as a father, which means you ought not be awed by him. Now, I suspect that in this particular case, this illuminating manifestation, which could be seen and experienced that flooded the area with light, was a much more energy-based manifestation of Yahowah than Yosha would more typically be, more like he's going to return. And so the first thing he says, don't be afraid. Don't be awed. It's not your role in this relationship for you to be awed or afraid of me, because I'm here to serve you. You're not here to serve me. I'm here to help you. I'm here for your benefit. We have Glenn back. Just as I clicked the welcome to the program button, Glenn, you were disconnected. I'm sorry if that was our technology that did that to you.
Who knows? The technology is quite crazy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Oh, very good. Okay, yeah. It's all the time with these things these days. I was listening to what you were saying before about, the Christians dissociating, Yahusha from Yahowah with the name and stuff. And what I was thinking of, and I understand the point you're making, but sometimes it comes across as if they're like these hundreds of millions of Christians who are lined up, and I'm thinking the vast majority of these people have no idea that this is occurring or no intention. I'm just thinking like the average, most adherent of any idealistic group or religion or body politic, or even, people who join groups often don't know the doctrines of their groups. I mean,
of course.
12-step groups. I've never met a 12, like the people from Alcoholics Anonymous. I've never met 12-steppers who can name the 12 steps,
Of course, yeah.
People who can't tell you what the 10 Commandments are, what books they're in, it's like they belong to groups. So they're not really like lining up against to oppose this. It's like, they really just don't know.
Yeah, let me respond to your statement, Glenn. It is true that most adherents to a religion are relatively clueless as to what the edicts of their religion are. But when you get to the foundations of Christianity, to establish the new religion, and that's what I referenced, the first thing that the founders of the religion had to do is to disassociate their man God from the real God, and that's why they changed their pretend God's name. And the next thing they needed to do to have a new religion is to disassociate their man God from the real God's testimony. And that's the second thing they did. And as a result of the founders, the perpetrators of the religion of Christianity, having deliberately and consciously done these things, now the principal nature of the religion has as at its core this disassociation between Jesus Christ and Yahowah, and between their Jesus Christ and the Torah, and there's an animosity for the Torah and Christendom. Now, the fact that the average adherent to religion is dumb as a stone is true, but it doesn't change the fact that it's central to the religion.
I guess that's something like a little bit like people of reasonable IQ that are just like misled. You know what I mean? Like, my people perish for lack of knowledge. The blind follow the blind and fall into a pit. I mean, that's the phenomenon we're trying to, that you want to, you probably don't see me as being totally in the same camp as you, but I mean, just in the spirit of benevolence and the desire to keep people without needlessly alienating them, I'm just an average Christian, like, they're looking back the Torah, they're looking at the two or whatever, and they're learning of like Westcott and Hort, and the Yahweh versus the El. And, you know, they had no inherent animosity against the name Yahweh. They just, like, you know, befuddled, you know, like, okay, for example, in the name of God.
Actually, it's I'm going to challenge that. You know, I receive tens of thousands of letters from Christians and Muslims, and I'm going to tell you that most Christians have an animosity to now most those who are willing to go out and advocate on behalf of their religion have an animosity to Yahweh's name. They have an absolute love for Jesus Christ as a name. They love one name, revere it, and they're opposed to the other. And they will actually attack an individual just based upon that individual's affinity for the name Yahweh. Beyond that, to advocate on behalf of a religion is different than just being fooled by the religion. Now, if you're being fooled by the religion, it is you must be either ignorant of what the religion actually says or irrational in terms of not being able to process the information in a credible way to continue to be part of a religion. That in Christianity, for example, if you know that Christianity's, Paul's letters, are opposed to the Torah, and you know that he claimed that the same God inspired him, it would be irrational to believe that someone who contradicts God could be inspired by that God, and you would cease to be a Christian. So you can't be a participant in a religion and not either be somewhat ignorant of what the religion teaches or irrational in terms of your willingness to hold the religion accountable. And now when you move from the victims of religion to the advocates of religion to those who are promoting their religion, their arguments are so absurd. And when they confront with evidence and reason, they're so incapable of applying normal, logical rules to the discussion that I'm sure that that description, while it's a bit pejorative, fits most of the advocates.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe some of the more pugilistic ones who frequent the chat rooms or blogs would make you familiar. But I can assure you. And you know, I mean,
okay.
you're not.
Glenn, we have such a horrible echo that unless we can find a better way.
I'll take care of that. I'm sorry. I must be into a bad state. I'm sorry. That was my bad. I can assure you, and you know, having been affiliated with a mainstream, you know. I was raised as a liberal Lutheran. I did an Eastern religion thing. I ended up back in evangelical and that sort of thing. But well, so if you bump into the name, wade through that and work your way back to the Yahweh and El. We certainly, and the role of the name El as an addition for Yahweh. And we have it tacked onto all of the prophetic names. We have the Daniel and Ezekiel and Nathaniel and all the L's. Yeah. So you have to look at the L. So people,
hang on. One myth at a time. El is not a name. It's a title. Names and titles are very different. All El means is Almighty, and in Hebrew it is one of Yahweh's many titles. He has many titles. He has one name. He has many titles, and it is sad that most of the proponents of religion view the title God, which would be the English version of El, as a name. When it isn't. Lord, by the way, in Hebrew from Baal, is used both as a title and a name. And so there are some titles that also become names. The name of the false god of the Babylonians is based upon Baal. Right. Now, it as a word, it means Lord. Right, it means Lord, so it's a title, but it's also a name. But in the case of El, although it is misappropriated by religions as a name of a god, the fact is that it's used in Hebrew strictly as a title.
And even Baal, there was in the prophets where God says, you shall no longer call me Baal, acknowledging that they were referring to God as
yes,
Baal.
He hates,
You shall no longer call me this.
That's right. In fact, it's one of the things that he says when he returns. He says the first thing he says upon his return, when he has eliminated all religion and all politics and all of the corruption from planet Earth, and we return to the conditions of the Garden of Eden, the first thing that God says he's thrilled about is that he will never be called Lord Baal again. And so it's a profound insight into God's disgust with that title. But to use the title, if you're a Christian and you're referring to your God as the Lord, it shows that you are ignorant of God's hatred of that term being applied to him, which gets right back to why he said, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, for a lack of understanding. It's the crippling aspect of religion, and I would argue that there are two aspects of religion that make it crippling. There's probably more than just the two, but the two that we're talking about here is a lack of knowledge, an unwillingness to investigate what God actually says and compare it to what the religion teaches, which contradict one another, and this an area that has always been important to you, Glenn, which is an unwillingness to apply logical decision-making to the evidence, so that you say, well, if God says this and my religion says the opposite of that, both cannot be true. And most who are religious are unwilling to grapple with those things. Now, that doesn't make them stupid and life in general, but it certainly does relative to the perspective they have chosen through the religion. We're out of time in this segment, Glenn. We'll be back. We'll be back after the commercial break. To Shattering Myths. I want to make just a couple of not so much a clarification as an insight that is helpful relative to the advocates of religion being dumb as a stone. Romney, for example, I'm sure is a reasonably smart individual. He is a Mormon. He devotes 10% of his income to the Mormon Church. You cannot be a thoughtful Mormon. If you're going to believe that Mormonism is true, which is this notion that the Jews got on a mighty ship during Solomon's time and sailed across to the Americas, and that the native population of the Americas are really Jews, and that Joseph Smith was allowed to translate a tablet, but could not show the tablet that was God's message, but God didn't want to leave a copy of it, and that you're going to have your special underwear and your special planet if you're a good Mormon. Stupid. If you're going to inflict that upon your family, that's just the literal definition of stupid. If you're a Muslim and off threatening and killing on behalf of Islam based upon the words and deeds of a man who is a rapist and a pedophile and a terrorist and a slave trader and a vowed liar, that's stupid. When the founder of your religion and the writer of half of the Christian New Testament tells you that he is demon-possessed, admits in one of his letters that he is insane, and overtly contradicts the God who he said inspired him, and yet you're going to believe him when he denounces the Torah. Folks, that's stupid. That's absolutely stupid. If you're going to be religious and prayerful and act as a religious monk in a religion named Buddhism when the founder of your religion wasn't religious, that's stupid. If you're going to be an advocate of socialist secular humanism because you think religions are the most deadly concoction man has ever had, and that the way to civility and to enlightenment is through socialist secular humanism, not recognizing that the most deadly religion in human history is the very one that you're advocating, that's stupid. What isn't stupid is to listen to what God has to say. The conversations that Yahowah, the Barim, has had with us, that he has made available to us through his Debar, his word, which you'll find in his Torah. And so what he said to this individual, through whom he is offering the covenant, not only to him and his descendants, but to us as well. Especially when he is now able to witness an illuminating manifestation of Yahowah, of the word of Yahowah in his midst. And the first thing that Yahowah says is something that you pay attention to because it's essential. It says, don't be awed. Don't be afraid. Al-Yare. Don't be intimidated. Why? Because the real God is the antithesis of the religious God. Religious gods have to be feared because if you don't capitulate, they're going to torture you in hell. That's a fearsome God. The real God says, no. I'm here to serve you. I'm your reward. I'm here to empower you, to facilitate you, to energize you. I'm to make you greater than you are. I'm here to ransom you, to pay the fee as a servant, to vindicate you. That's what God told Abram. That's what it's all about. We're not called to get down on our knees to lift God up in praise. No. He gets down on his knees to lift us up. We're incapable of doing what religion seeks to accomplish, to lift up God. But he is absolutely capable and indeed willing to get down on his knees to lift us up. So the message of the Word of God, as the literal Word of God became manifest before Abram at this conversation regarding the covenant, says, I'm here to lift you up. I'm here as your reward. I'm here to serve you. I'm here on your behalf to help you. Moreover, I'm here to shield you, to protect you, to surround you, to keep you from harm, to defend you. This is the true God. This is the relationship that he seeks to have with his children. It is the basis of the covenant. It is why God rewards and benefits his children. We'll be back at this time tomorrow. May God bless.